My name's Alan Ross, and I'm related to one of the early pioneering families in the district. And my family came here in 1875. My grandfather, he had one of the first factories in Frankston, and it was the aerated waters up on Hastings Road. And to get the water drinks, the soft drinks that he manufactured down there, it was taken from a spring which was up near Heather Hill Road and piped down to the factory. He had a family of 8, and they all worked in the factory making these drinks. They were taken by horse and lorry all over the peninsula, down to Flinders and right down through Mornington, down into Dramana. The boys used to go away on the wagon. It'd be a 2-day trip down to us, and they'd camp underneath the wagon of a night. It wasn't easy work in those days, but the water up there was very, very good out of the spring, because you never had all the pollution and septic tanks like we had round there in the 1940s and 1950s prior to sewage coming. Back into the 40s, which isn't all that long ago, an uncle of mine, he was medically unfit to go to the war, but he had a cartage contract business, and I think he worked harder than anybody else at the time. He used to unload the railway trucks at the Frankston station, and because there was lack of manpower in those days, and they used to take the coal from the railway around to the gasworks. That was around to a man called Mr. Joe Sorrigan, and Joe was in charge of the gasworks, and what a stink right in the middle of the town. It was unbelievable. I went to school with Alan Sorrigan, and I used to sit next to Alan, and it wasn't his fault, but he used to smell of gas. It was terrible. But anyway, this uncle of mine, he used to unload and load off again onto his truck 16 tonne of coal a day, and he'd shovel it on and shovel it off, and that went on from 6 in the morning till about 6 or 7 at night. He just had to get it done. And there was also all that had the grain stores. All the stuff came by rail, which was the wheat, the pollard, flour for the bakeries, everything. It was all done mainly by rail.
Uncle Underwood, we didn't come to Frankston to live permanently to 1937. My father came to Frankston originally in 1920. State Rivers on the construction of the Frankston Reservoir, which everyone seems to be arguing about at the present what they're going to do with it. And they built that with pick, shovel, or scoops. No modern equipment in those days. And then put the little bit of retrick in the town. Frankston then moved on. We didn't come back here to 37. Bought a house on McCullough Street right opposite Alan. His family, well, Alan wasn't born then. Yes, he was.
Yes, he was.
He was born. He was born in 37. That's right, and we come in January 37. I'm giving you away, mate.
Don't tell me how old I am.
Been friends and grown up together since we were back. I remember as a child, I used to get the smack behind the ears and one on the behind from Dad, because I was always late home from school, because I'd come down Young Street and stop at Dyson's on the corner of Rossmith Avenue and watch them build the buses. And they used to build these semi-trailer buses to ship all the children up, and they were used during the war. The troop from the Yanks were camped down at Balcombe, brought them up to the Frankston station, because in those days we had chores to do. We had no gas, we had to cut the wood, feed the chooks, clean the chook yard up.
There was always a job.
So we used to go to Alan's grandfather's, because later on Alan's grandfather had the bottle yard in Clarendon Street. We used to collect bottles and go in there, and we used to get a good deal because he was the grandson. I think on today's standard we had a better time. Really, we worked, but it didn't matter. We still had plenty of freedom. We didn't have to lock doors. You'd go down the street, and Mum would walk down the street. You'd call in with friends, and they just walked, and they weren't home. She just put the kettle on, make a cup of tea, wait till they come home. I mean, it was a entirely different lifestyle, which I enjoyed better than today's.
Bill and I, enterprising young fellas, kids, we were at the Peninsula Country Golf Club over there as caddies. Now, I started over there caddying at the age of 6. And I used to caddy for ladies and carry light bags. As I got a bit bigger and stronger, the bags were bigger and everything. And it's unbelievable the amount that we met, people that we met who were well respected in the community. I remember Bill's a job there for a year when he finished school, and he had aspirations of becoming a professional golfer. And he said to me, when you get home from school tonight, come over to the club. Someone over there I want you to meet. I went over there, and that someone was Don Bradman. He was on the putting green with his wife. I just waited and waited until he finished, and I come up and I said, "Excuse me, sir, could I have your autograph?" And he got out a pencil and rewrote it all out, and I thought I was made. I had Don Bradman's orders. Politicians, movie stars, beauty queens, you name it, they were all staying at different times at the Peninsula Country Golf Club. And as I say, Bill and I worked over there. We'd go over on Saturday morning, and the professional was Mr. Bill Clifford. He was there for many, many years.
36 to 64.
Yeah, a long time. And he was looked upon to be the best golf teacher professional in the state. Other professionals came there when the game wasn't going so good, and they'd see Bill and he'd sort out their problems. We'd do on the Saturday morning, Bill would give lessons, and you'd go down to the practice fairway and you'd run the whole of Saturday morning from 9 o'clock till midday. Go home, have your lunch, and then come back and do a round carrying the bags, caddying in the afternoon, and you wouldn't finish there till 5 o'clock. And then Sunday it was exactly the same. And then Monday, go to school and take that money and put it in the school bank. So you never really had. Peninsula Country Golf Club is a lot different than what it is today. It was in McMahon's Road, and a massive golf house that was there, 3-storey. And
Timber.
yeah, in 1946, when I first went over there caddying, I would have been 45, 46. It was £100 to become a member. One of the people that I caddied for was J. Coles, caddied for Mr. Ted Bedsgood, who ran Bedsgood Shoes.
Ladies' shoes.
Yeah. Ladies' shoes, yeah.
Richmond, for a big factory at Richmond.
And then I moved over to Long Island. They used to have a 3-day golf tournament over there, and it was run by the RSL. And it was over the show week. Another time I caddied for Norman Von Nider, who was top golfer in his day. So, you know, we had a good child, and I think also, being a caddy, you learnt a lot of respect. You had to address them as sir and excuse me and yes, thank you. You learnt all that, because if you didn't get a job. There was quite a good learning curve for any kid to get over there. But that's all changed now. They've brought in motor carts and buggies and everything like that, so the jobs are not there anymore. But it was a good time for us. I bought my first block of land when I was 16. I think Bill wasn't far ahead of me there. He had a block, what, 1958 or something, was it? 58? Yeah. My first block was over on McMahon's Road, right where Bunnings have got their garden yard today. Finally moved out, and they divided the road, and the traffic got so bad I didn't know whether they were leaving home yesterday or they were getting an early start for today. The traffic just never stopped. Yeah, well, as I say, we grew up in McAllister Street, and our letterboxes were down on the corner of McAllister Street and Beach Street. And in those days there were only 5 boxes down on the corner, and we had to walk down to get the mail every day. That was how it was done, because McAllister Street was just a sand track. My dad bought a block there in 1939, and it was £25, $50 for a block. So, and he paid it off at 50 cents a week. So that's how the values have changed nowadays. Talking about old Frankston, not many people would know that. It's in under the cliff. And also up on Frankston Dandenong Road, where Long Island Golf Club is today. Also a peanut farm. I had an old uncle who really loved Frankston history, and he used to tell me these things, and I used to listen. So another one he used to talk about was Hangman's Hill. Now that hasn't been mentioned, and not many people would know what that is, but Hangman's Hill was actually on the corner of Robinson Road and Frankston Hastings Road, up where the service station is today. And what it was, a fellow was hung in the tree, on the big gum tree, and hung out over the road, and they found, because the traffic wasn't used much in those days, and when daylight came, there's a body hanging in the trees. I had an uncle, and he was 9 years old. He was killed by a motor car right outside the Frankston Hospital, 1917. Now, how unlucky was that? He's in a little billy cart. He come down the road, and this fella come down in his direction, cleaned him up. You'd get 1 car an hour in 1917. There wasn't much about in those days.
You're talking about the coal mine, well, just a little bit further back. Yeah. Also where his name, the sculptor lives. He done a lot for the war in Canberra.
In Canberra, that's right.
Yeah, well, he's property in there. When we put the sewer on the property, I was a plumber. Dug down about 3 feet. Little railway tracks. Couldn't work them out. Little railway tracks on a block of land. Wasn't after I finished, a couple of months later, I was down swimming, talking to one of the old McCoons. I told him about it. He said, son, he says, I was in my bloody late 20s. He'd call me son. He says, that was a brickworks in there. We used to make bricks. And they were the tracks we used to push the trolleys around with the sand on. Right, he said they went up to Cranbourne Road, up there where McDonald,
Collerton.
Where Collerton Brick Company started up then. up opposite Lardner Road. I know a lot of people remember the old Colonnade Brick Company, but I can remember another day I got in trouble coming home late from school. They used to have a whole Austin trucks and cart the bricks. They come down, Davey, he got that level at the old Grand Hotel and he run out of brake and he jumped out and let the truck go, so it went straight down through between the old Frankston and the Pier Hotel, which was no central parking like it is now, just East Park, each side just a road. The truck tried to go across the footbridge and fell into the creek. We used to play, we weren't allowed to, but we used to. The old Dutch mill.
Yes.
Remember that one up there?
Yeah, built by Charlie Holt.
Yeah, up there at
Outlook Road.
Outlook Road, Heather Hill Road there. That was another little spot where all the kids used to meet and ride their bike and get up there, who could get up the furthest.
Dutch Mill was built and it was used as a place for afternoon teas.
Yeah.
Things like that in the 1920s, 1930s. It had sales and all of it in its early days, but then it fell into disrepair and just finally disappeared. But the stone from that was taken out of the ground just round the hump behind it, down in Wallace Avenue. That was where the stone was come from. So the stone that's down at the Frankston football ground, where the main gates are, that's also come from there.
Yeah, that's right.
And the gates themselves that are on the Frankston football ground come from the old Melbourne jail. Beauty Park was a lake like it is today. There's a local that was in there, he was well known around the town, was Neil Bond. And Neil Bond was a fisherman, and he had a little dinghy, and Saturday afternoon when the football was on, he'd have his dinghy up at the lake, and he'd just sit there all afternoon in the dinghy, and when they kicked the ball over the fence, well, it was just a tin fence around there in those days, it was Neil's job to go out and retrieve the ball out of the lake and bring it back. It was drained, and it turned into what we know as Beauty Park, and it was a big playground for kids. Over on the High Street side there was a zoo, had wallabies and kangaroos, peacocks, all that sort of thing. There was an aviary.
Big aviary along the back up there.
Yeah, and in the middle of the park there was a moat. There was bamboo grass that grew around it, and you crossed a little bridge and then walked through the bamboo grass, and there was a huge aviary that was there for many, many years. Also the fire brigade had a running track below the council chambers, and they used to have these demonstrations there which now run in the country. Country towns still have fire demos, and it's like a fire brigade Olympic Games, the best way to describe it.
It used to be Australia Day weekend.
Australia Day weekend,
Everyone used to sit on that, in amongst the trees there on the bank and look down on it, watch it down there.
They'd have huge crowds come to watch this. I can remember in 1945 the photos were made the middle page of the Melbourne Sun.
Yeah.
What in the 1950s was the water pressure wasn't good enough to run the fire brigade events where they had the ladder events, and they'd run up a ladder and you're up about 25 feet, carry the hose and then turn the water, fit the hydrant, run the hose out and take the ladder up and screw it to a target on the top. Water pressure was a bit too much for the height of the ladder and the finish, because more people were on the mains and they just didn't have the pressure. Well, my father, I've always had a member involved in the Frankston Fire Brigade from 1990 right up until about 10 years ago, which is about 2002. And that took in my father, my auntie, the uncles, all the cousins, they were in it. And the last one to leave was an old auntie of mine, and she was 88. Been on the social committee at the Frankston Fire Brigade for over 40 years. Still very, very proud of Frankston. There are a lot of knockers. Really, you get away from Young Street by the station, and it is a great place to live.